That's all coming up on tonight's Inside Out with me, Mary Rhodes. In today's army, even if you're only in for a matter of years, there's a very good chance that you'll see active service. British soldiers are currently facing danger on a daily basis in Afghanistan. Before that, it was in Iraq. So after asking soldiers to risk their lives for their country, are we then doing enough to give them a life after the army? Last year, 7,000 recruits from the West Midlands joined the forces. Many will serve on the front line. But do current rules mean that some soldiers who've put their lives on the line in war zones are losing out when they leave military life behind? When servicemen and women leave the forces, they often need help readjusting to civilian life. At the moment, how much help you get depends on how long you've served. But increasingly, many are saying this model is out of date and the sacrifice of thousands of veterans is being ignored. Thomas Young served in the Mercian Regiment for 4.5 years, including tours of Northern Ireland and Iraq. When he left, he was entitled to some funding for retraining, but he never got it.
The help I got was minimal, basically. We all sat in a room and they went through who had these enhanced learning credits. Basically, enhanced learning credits are a grant, basically, to do a course. So you can go and do a course in civilian life to help you in civilian life. But there was a number of us, we didn't get applied for it, so we wasn't granted that. We tried to chase it up, but because my battalion was close to deployment, it felt like we just got, just shoved to the back, basically, because there was other priorities in place.
Even though he'd served out his contract, to qualify for full resettlement support, Thomas would have had to serve an extra 2 years. Eventually, he found a bar job, he says paid less than £100 a week.
In the back of my head, I didn't feel that great. I felt a bit down, a bit depressed, because I just wanted better things for me, basically.
When Thomas was at his lowest ebb, help came from a company specialising in mentoring ex-servicemen and women and finding them new careers. One of its directors is the former head of the British Army, General Sir Michael Jackson. What are the main challenges facing people who've left the forces and looking for a new career in civilian life?
It's learning that you've got to do it yourself, you've got to put yourself forward. How do you get on in an interview? What are the skills you require there? All of this we can help with. So it's not just a job, it's a change of way of life as well.
Ex-Special Forces operative turned best-selling author Andy McNabb is another of the company's directors. The way that the official resettlement works at the moment is essentially the longer you serve, the more you get. Do you think that's fair?
I certainly think that the balance is wrong. I think that certainly if you're a general or a brigadier, well, actually, £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 resettlement grant, who wouldn't say no? But the 4-year service leaver may be better off with that money to go out with, because he certainly won't have £3,000, £4,000, £5,000 in the bank.
But the problem gets more complicated. There's a group of servicemen and women called early service leavers, people who've left the forces before the end of their 4-year contract. They're not entitled to any official help with retraining. So these young soldiers are in effect interviewed, told where the job centre is and told which charities are out there to help them.
Yeah, that was actually when we were fighting in Kajaki.
Daniel Burke served 3.5 years as a paratrooper, including a tour on the front line in Afghanistan. So can you talk me through why you left and what happened?
Well, I didn't voluntarily leave, I was actually kicked out of the army. When I came back from Afghanistan, after about a month or two, I really started to struggle with myself. I was actually drinking one hell of a lot, getting into a lot of trouble basically with the police, within the army itself. I was talking to a medical officer within the army, and he said he was suffering from a really high case of PTSD, but the fighting also escalated quite a lot, making it into a serious case of PTSD.
Although Daniel says his aggression was as a result of post-traumatic stress disorder, the army had no choice but to give him a dishonourable discharge. Despite this, he feels he should have had more support when he left.
You just need a helping hand. You don't need everything done for you. Just someone to point you in the right direction and for a little bit of support.
6 months after leaving the army, 30% of early service leavers are still out of work, compared with 20% of the equivalent civilian population. Leaving for anything except a medical discharge means these veterans forfeit their resettlement rights. Ex-Army Major Jim Panton heads up a charity looking after Forces veterans. He says the system should recognise the frontline service given by many early service leavers.
I think it's fundamentally unfair that if you have been in for the Army for less than 4 years, you may have said you've done 3.5 years, you could have served 3 operational tours in places like Afghanistan and Iraq before that, and really only qualify for the same amount of support in leaving the armed forces as someone who's been in training for 3 or 4 weeks and decided the army wasn't for them. You're in the same group right now as them, and that is fundamentally unfair, and I think in the list of things that aren't quite right, this is right at the top of the list.
But do others think early service leavers should be getting a better deal?
Can I put your question another way round? Should there be a bonus in resettlement time deriving from operational service? I can see the attraction of the idea, but equally well, those who go on operations are because they are in a particular unit at a particular time. There is a bit of an element of chance here. I'm not sure that the resettlement program should work on a basis of chance.
Daniel understands the decision to dismiss him, but thinks his service should have earned him the right to resettlement support. Some people might be watching this and thinking, well, hang on a minute, he broke his contract because he signed up for 4 years and he got kicked out, so actually why should he get any support? Do you understand that point of view?
Yeah, of course, yeah, you can see both sides of the fence, but somebody who's been in for less than 4 years can still do up to 2 tours, so, but then you get somebody that's been in for 10 years that hasn't been out on tour, so you can't really say, well, they can have it, well, we can have it, but they can't have it. We can actually do a lot more under 4 years than what they've done in a lifetime.
The contribution made by people like Daniel on the front line may yet be recognised. The Ministry of Defence has opened a consultation into benefits for early service leavers, but any changes won't be put in place until at least 2015.
It is too little, too late. It should have happened. It should have been in place 4 or 5 years ago, minimum, if not quicker, earlier than that. It's great that it's coming, and I wouldn't want to knock that. I welcome it, and we're going to provide feedback in the consultation to help hopefully make it even better when it eventually comes in. But I just wish they'd get on with it.
The Ministry of Defence declined to be interviewed, but told us,
"We recognise that more needs to be done to improve resettlement packages for early service leavers. We will be looking at whether we can enhance provision for those who have served for less than 4 years. The review will identify where we can make improvements straight away."
So in the future, more servicemen and women may get help finding a job when they leave the forces. As for ex-Mercian Thomas Young, he eventually found the career he was looking for without the help of the army.
When I came out, and I was obviously worried about jobs and stuff basically, and when this came along, I was just thought, oh, someone loves me up there basically. Someone's really looking out for me, and I just snatched the opportunity basically, and I've had a smile on my face ever since basically, yeah. Really good.